Penn State Nittany Lions are on the practice field, gearing up for the spring game, looking to erase 4-5. We got Tim Maiden on the line from Black Shoe Diaries on SB Nation to help us break down Penn State football as he typically does. Tim, how you doing today?
Feeling good, considering I just got my second COVID shot yesterday. But maybe just a little bit lethargic today. But it certainly could be worse. So
we'll talk a little football. See if that gets you revved up here. We know that James Franklin and coaches met with the media this week. What stood out to you?
Earlier this week, James Franklin and his D-line coach, John Scott, had a press conference. And so Franklin was very praiseful of RASHEED Walker, the returning left tackle. And he said, quote, he has a chance to have a special year. So that, that speaks volumes as to what he expects out of Walker. And it was definitely big news when Walker himself announced last year that he was coming back for one more year, because many people thought that maybe he would just leave for the NFL, because he certainly was draftable after last season, much like Jahan Dotson, receiver. Franklin also was praising Brandon Smith, returning linebacker, described as having a nasty demeanor. And he mentioned how Smith has been filling the leadership role. He's been spending extra time in the coaches' offices. And the other big news with Smith is that they moved him from the Sam outside linebacker position to the Will outside linebacker position. Now, just, I guess, to backtrack a little bit and explain how Penn State does linebacker positions, they have what's called the Will, the Sam, and the Mike. So the Mike is the middle linebacker. And right now, it seems like Jesse Luketa is projected to, or that's at least going to be a battle between Jesse Luketa and Ellis Brooks for that starting spot. And then the Will spot will be where Brandon Smith is moving to. And that's a better fit for Smith's skill sets. He's a very athletic type and, very built guy who if you've seen his high school tape, he's a guy who just locks in on whoever the ball carries and just flies towards the ball carrier and, knocks him off his feet. So that's what the Will's responsibility is. So I'm looking forward to seeing him, hitting some ball carriers in the backfield for a loss, or maybe getting a sack, what have you. I'm looking forward to seeing some nice hits from Smith. And at the Sam spot, it's more of a linebacker safety type hybrid position. And that's it sounds like Curtis Jacobs, rising sophomore, former blue chip recruit out of Maryland. He's expected to lock down that starting spot. And so it sounds like Jacobs has been making a lot of progress over the offseason. And he showed flashes last year during the abbreviated season, but he's taken that next step. And with him and Smith out there starting, there's hope that we may see the triumphant return of linebacker U at Penn State.
Brandon Smith, 117 total tackles in his 3 seasons with Penn State, including 62 in a shortened season of only 9 games. Last year, 6 tackles for loss and 2 interceptions. Got Tim Maiden on the line, Black Shoe Diaries, SB Nation, talking about Penn State football. Of course, the spring game is coming up in Happy Valley on April 17th, and it will be nice for you as a Penn State alum and your fellow Penn State alum and fans to know that there are going to be fans in the stands once again.
Yes, so Penn State announced that there will be a spring game on April 17th. So as of a recording, that's a week from today. And they are limiting it to just first-year students only. So it's not like they're allowing the general public back in, and obviously no tailgating. There's always usually a carnival set up outside the stadium too on blue-white weekends. So it's usually, in normal times, it's like a great weekend to just, if you have kids, to bring the family out there, ride the Ferris wheels, what have you. But it's so that none of that this year. But we are going to see some fans in the stands for the first time since the 2019 home finale against Rutgers. So that'll be a welcome sight, I'm sure. And I'm, fingers crossed with the way things are going in this country with vaccinations, I'm feeling hopeful that we'll be back to seeing all the stands filled at Big Ten stadiums this fall. I know Penn State is anticipating right now having full capacity. Of course, that could change, but that's what they're shooting for. So, I know personally, being fully vaxxed, I'm very much looking forward to hopefully cutting the next whiteout this year. But going back to the team, John Scott, also the defensive line coach, had a press conference this week too, and he was also praising the guys in his units, especially in particular a pair of transfer portal guys. There's Arnold Ebiketie, a defensive end out of Temple. He's been described. Scott described him as super athletic. Mentioned how he's blended into the locker room culture pretty quickly. He expects him to be a real presence in the pass rush, which would be kind of a welcome sight. The pass rush last year, frankly, was non-existent at times, or it felt like it should have been better, given that you had Shaka Toney and Jason Oweh back. Hopefully, Arnold can help, fulfill some of that promise this season. The other transfer portal D lineman was Derek Tangelo. He's more of a defensive tackle, but he's been praised for his quickness, and Scott says he likes how he brings that experience of having played in the ACC to Happy Valley. So Derek Tangelo was actually a guy that Penn State was initially looking at back when he was a high school recruit, but he visited the Penn State. He ultimately did not land an offer, but it's funny how these things can sometimes come full circle. He did a fine job at Duke, and then jumps in the portal, and now he's back at the school he was hoping to initially play for.
Get your free Penn State mask at voiceofcollegefootball.com. Just check in right there, voiceofcollegefootball.com. You see the description on the banner right there. Go to register for free at the top of the screen. Get a free mask. Get 20% off your first purchase. Tim Aiden on the line from SB Nation's Black Shoe Diary. So head on over there. Get primed for the Penn State spring game coming up here in about a week. And transfer portal, early enrollees, James Franklin addressed who's looking good there.
Yes. Couple of early enrollees that I continually see getting praise from Franklin and the staff are a pair of twins out of Michigan, Kalen and Kobe King. So Kalen's a cornerback, Kobe's a linebacker. But Franklin's praised them both as being ready to compete, and they're also being lauded for their maturity. So it's hard to get more glowing reviews than that if you're an early enrollee at Penn State. So I'm looking forward to seeing those guys play. I'm sure they'll get plenty of run in the spring game. And I guess if we're gonna talk about a little bit about spring game, I'm also going to be watching the quarterback position. Yes, that includes Sean Clifford. I'm just curious to see how Mike Yursic's system looks with Sean Clifford running it. And even more importantly, I want to see the backups, Taquan Roberson and Christian Veilleux, sling the rock. Because in Roberson's case, he hasn't played outside of garbage time, and he's only thrown one pass in his career, which is an incompletion. And actually, all of last year, he only came in and handed the ball off. He didn't even throw a single pass last year. And then Veilleux, he hasn't played organized football since the fall of 2019 because unfortunately his last high school season got canceled. So I really want to see how those two fare. And there's always a possibility, considering that Roberson and Veilleux are the only other two scholarship quarterbacks, given Penn State only 3 scholarship QBs. I'm sure the staff is still looking at the portal to bring in a guy who can just give them some added scholarship depth, because the last thing you want is if there's a scenario where Cliff gets hurt or whatever, has to sit out for a lengthy period of time for whatever reason, things can get dicey in a hurry. So be nice if they could find another scholarship QB somehow before, this fall. I guess also I'll be taking a look. I'll probably just be taking a look at the receivers. I want to, we know what Jahan Dotson brings to the table, and even Parker Washington to an extent. I want to see if other guys can step up. I want to see if Keandre Lambert-Smith shows a little more confidence out there. If Cam Sullivan-Brown, maybe Daniel George looks like he's finally pieced it all together. So there's definitely a few intriguing storylines to check out a week from now.
Yeah, back to King and King, both Kalen and Colby there. A couple players out of Cass Tech in Detroit, one of the top performing football powers in the Midwest. And of course, James Franklin and his staff able to pluck away two of the top 12 players out of the state of Michigan away from Michigan and Michigan State. Kalen's the 16th rated cornerback in the country, and Colby the 20th rated linebacker coming out of high school. So 2 gets for Penn State, not only good gets for the Nittany Lions, but also taking that talent away again, potentially from Michigan State in the division. We got Tim Aiden on the line from Black Shoe Diaries, SB Nation. It's becoming a situation in which, as we discussed before we started to record, recruiting continually getting pushed back in regards to it being very understandable that the student athletes don't want to commit until they actually go to campus and can see the campus firsthand. We have a dead period that runs through May 31st that's expected to be lifted, although we don't know exactly that's going to be the case. But a big recruiting weekend coming up for Penn State for a class that James Franklin's off to a great start, 3rd in the Big Ten, 7th in the country.
Yeah, so as of right now, Penn State's anticipating having a bunch of in-person official visits the weekend of June 11th. And it's going to be, as far as I know, I think all of the current 2022 commits are going to be there, including guys like Caden Saunders. He's, the 4-star kid out of Westerville, Ohio, 5'10" receiver, very speedy. He's a guy who actually was a 3-star initially and blew up, and then was getting offers from the likes of Notre Dame and SEC schools, what have you. Notre Dame, I know, is making a huge push for him, but it sounds right now he's pretty solid with Penn State, and especially that's because about a month ago, Penn State landed a big time quarterback commitment in Drew Aller out of Ohio, 6'5", like 220 pounds, big guy, but he just seems to effortlessly just sling the rock all over the yard. He just seems like the kind of recruit that's the kind of quarterback who can take your team over the top. And in Penn State's case, over the top means to not just win a Big Ten championship, they've done that, but to break into the playoff, which is something they have yet to do. And then you look at the teams that have been winning national championships lately, like, Bama, Clemson, what have you, or the teams that make the playoffs, I should say. I mean, the one thing in common they all share is they've got a stud quarterback who can, when push comes to shove, he can carry that team, to a win. So, Drew Aller seems like that kind of guy. And I don't say this at all as a knock on the other quarterback commit, Bo Perbula, also a 4-star kid out of Pennsylvania. I think having both of them in the same class it's going to be great competition going forward for the quarterback room. But yes, all of those, all the 2022 kids are expected to be up that weekend in June 11th, and it's gonna be nice. So I'll be able to see each other in person for once instead of just talking over Zoom or FaceTime, what have you. So it's another, and hopefully it's that the NCAA just lets the current dead period expire so that can happen. Just be one of another many steps towards that gradual return to normalcy, which in college football.
That game's always on the Big Ten Network. Do we have a game time for the spring game?
There's no information on that yet. As of the time we're recording this, I don't know if it'll be live streamed or if Big Ten Network will carry it either live or on tape delay. We just don't know yet. Something to just keep an eye on. Probably, I would imagine this coming week it'll be announced.
Get your free mask at voiceofcollegefootball.com, whether that's Penn State or we've got 35 teams available. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. Help us build the channel. Even if you don't want a mask, check out the site. We just launched about 6 weeks ago, and register for free. Get 20% off your first purchase. Not that you need to buy anything, and $25 gift card entry as well. Tim Aiden has really set us up in great shape for the spring game here with all sorts of recruiting news, insight into the early enrollees, and what James Franklin and his staff have highlighted thus far for Penn State as the Nittany Lions look to get back in the Big Ten championship race this fall. Tim, we always appreciate you stopping by, and hope you enjoy the game coming up, and hope all is well going forward. And, of course, we'll track you down soon for more analysis as we head toward August camp.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.